Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Wake up to the symphony. Oh yeah, wake up. We're here to wake up, aren't we? Isn't that why we come here? Come here to wake up. And take that awareness back outside of us. So, welcome again. I'm Deb Mechley. I love being here. I see you. I see every one of you. You really are. So ego. Wow. Having ego as your soul's mate. We'll talk a little bit about that, and I hope that the meditation opened you up a little bit to maybe seeing where I'm going to go with that, the path that we're going to go on with that. But ego, when we think of ego, what comes up for you? What do you think about, especially when you think about your own ego? How do you feel about that? I would venture to guess that most everyone in here has maybe a little lower vibration when we think about ego, or our conversations, our experiences inside of ego, maybe even some negative thoughts. You know, in unity, ego, we say, is edging God out. I accept that, but let me ask you this, okay? Anybody in here feel like they are separate from God? You don't have to answer that. But think about when we say ego edging God out. Doesn't that indicate that we are separate from ego? That ego is something else, maybe doing something to us? So I like to say edging our God self out. Because if ego is part of self, it is within us, just as our higher self, our God self is. It's part of who we are. Well, if we realize that it is part of who we are, it is within us, and it's not separate from us, that's more empowering. We choose our words become very powerful, because now we have some control over our ego and our experiences. And the truth is, our ego is in every single experience that we have. We are taught a lot of things, by the way, and that's another message in itself, but we are taught that ego is bad. Ego means too much. Too much joy, too much love, too much money, too much sex, too much of anything is bad. And if ego is in every experience, then you're bad. Well, I don't buy it. I'm not buying it. So, what does the ego do with us? Remember, the ego isn't doing anything to us. It's with us. So if the ego is with us, it does what? It carries some emotional baggage, emotional triggers. Eckhart Tolle refers to these triggers as pain bodies. And we get to choose how we act or react, respond to these, because understand there is a difference between responding and reacting, and it's a choice. So we move into our ego as part of us, and everything shifts. Now, understand that you have to experience the opposite of something to know its opposite, to know who you are inside of that experience. True? I mean, you don't know what it is to emotionally or physically feel up if you've never been emotionally or physically down. You don't know what in is without out. I don't know what it is to be here unless I was out there. You see what I'm saying? You have to experience its opposite to move toward something different. So experiencing something that doesn't feel good leads you to do what? Move toward something that feels better. And when we are not feeling good, that isn't the truth of who we are. And we don't accept that, so we move towards something different. So let's talk about our higher self. You know, it amazes me how we get caught up in what's not working for us, who we aren't. We forget who we are all the time. But our higher self, we understand, we know that our higher self is this place within, right? It's that spiritual realm that we can go to anytime that we need to be, do, have something different. So let's go to the good stuff. Let's talk about, what does it mean, ego as your soul's mate? Not your soul mate, but your soul's mate. We talked about the opposites and why we have to have one without the other. But to know your soul self, you have to experience the opposite effect. The soul's desire is simply that of love. Love attraction, moving toward love, in and out of love, and that's who we are. In my daily experiences in hospice, I see the soul and the ego become one every single day. When we are making that transition from this earthly place, going back home, the moment of enlightenment is when we leave this earthly place. Now, sure, we have a lot of moments of enlightenment. We're moving toward that. We're all trying to reach that. But the moment of true enlightenment is when we leave this earth. And I find it really interesting because we spend the majority of our life unable to talk about death, dying, the conversations. In fact, we wrap it in a blanket of fear. And we also spend our life moving toward some level to reach of enlightenment, right? So it's interesting that the very thing that we fear and move away from is the very thing that takes us toward that which we seek, our enlightenment. I want you to think back to some moments in your life, you know, events, conversations, things that went on in your life where you just couldn't figure out why the heck is that going on with me. And the truth is, typically when we are inside of these events, we're not seeing the message or the opportunity to grow and to move, are we? Oftentimes, it's because our ego self parks itself, and it stays as long as we allow it to do that. It might not be till years later that we have those moments of awe. Oh, I get it. Now I know why I was in that abusive relationship, because now I'm over here in this incredible relationship. And had I not had that, I would not know that I am moving so gracefully, so with gratitude through this new life, this new relationship. The same thing with love. You know, we're moving toward that feeling of love because it feels good. And we wouldn't know what that feels like had we not had a lack of self-love, or maybe parental love, sibling love, romantic love, friendship love. We have to know what it feels like to not have something to move toward that which we are attracted to. So therefore, we take this ego self and we take our higher self, and we realize, if we choose to realize, that they're one and the same movement. I'm going to share with you a personal story. And many of you have heard this story before, but my youngest son, Devin, was born really ill. And he had, from the time he was 6 weeks old to 11 years old, over 40 surgeries. Some very small, some very large. But the one surgery in particular, when he was 11 years old, was going to be a big surgery. This was at the Mayo, and I was sitting in the St. Mary's Peace Garden. It was an August day, really hot. I'm sitting there grounding myself, praying and saying, let me just do this one more time. One surgery at a time, one more time, let me do this. So I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, absorbing the sun. And you know, when you're looking at the sun, you have to kind of squint your eyes because it hurts. I'm looking at the sun, and all of a sudden that yellow light became white. And it was the softest but brightest light. My eyes no longer hurt. So I tried to open them, and I could not open my eyes. But I knew, I was very clear that I was awake. And I knew that I was having this experience, but I sat on this bench, and I watched myself move toward this light, just float toward this light. And I allowed it to happen. And as I moved to this light, it took shape. And I looked, and there was this amazing pair of angel wings attached to this incredible angel that I have never seen anything like before and may never again. And she was embracing, like hovering over this liquid tree of light. And all this energy was moving through this light through this tree, the branches, and there were these discs. And in my nursing background, I have always seen them as like red blood cells. They're concave, there's no hole, total hole in them. And they were hanging on this tree. They were fuchsia in color. And as I stood there, I was everything. There was nothing else. There was nothing that had ever been before me or after me. There was nothing but me. I was all of it. Everything and nothing in one moment. And she took my hand and she put it into this disc. And I felt the most incredible love that I can't even explain to you. No matter how loved you felt on this earthly life, it is 100 million times that. And I knew what it meant to go home. There was nothing but that. The incredible light, the warmth. There was no question, no doubt. And I looked down, and there was a little figure sitting at the bottom of my feet in a white robe with this little veil. And they turned and looked up, and the veil fell off, and there was this curly brown hair, and it was my son, Devin. And he took my finger, and he said, "Go now, go." And I woke up just like that. It was done. I was sitting there dripping in sweat, 90-degree weather. And I jumped up, and I ran into the hospital, went up to the 6th floor. I sat there, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And the surgeon came out, and he said, "He's going to be okay. You know, we got everything done we needed to do." He said, "But we lost him for just under 2 minutes." And I said, "What do you mean you lost him?" And he said, "We had to bring him back. His heart stopped, but he'll be fine. He was on oxygen, no brain damage." And in that moment, I knew that these two things were connected, but I didn't realize how connected they were. So a couple days went by, and I was in bed with him, and he was recovering, and we were reading or playing a game, and I told him about this vision, this daydream that I had. I told him about the light, and the angel, and the discs, and the tree, and the feeling, and the love, and I looked down, and he said, "Yeah, I know, Mom. I was in your dream. I was with you. I'm waiting for you to be who you came here to be." That was the second time he had told me that, when he was 8 years old and diagnosed with lymphoma. And I was telling him that we weren't going to do chemo or radiation. He said, "I know, Mom, I came here sick, so I didn't have to be here long. I'm waiting for you to be who you're supposed to be." When he said that to me the second time, there was nothing else to say. We never talked about it again. So, as you can imagine, I've had this incredible experience. What am I supposed to do with it? I don't know whether I'm excited, whether I'm honored, but in the realm of time, there is no time, right? So 2 years go by, and I'm asking myself these questions. My ego is nagging at me every day. What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that, Debbie? And I'm like, yeah, who gets this experience? Who gets to have this and doesn't have a purpose for it? Doesn't have anything to do with it. I went back and forth with this. So one day, I'm thinking about Louise Hay. I used to do this exercise that she has you do in the mirror, where you look in your eyes, and you do your affirmations. But I would go talk to myself in the mirror and really look at myself, inside myself. And I started asking these same questions that I was asking over and over again. With all this discontent, there was no inspiration around it at the time. And I heard very clearly, you go back to that experience, you look through a different pair of eyes in rose-colored glasses. So I did that. And it occurred to me that inside that moment, that is all there is. That pure love. There is no ego. It's an illusion. It is an illusion. It's not separate from who I was. And so I wasn't supposed to take that experience and run away and do something physically with it. I was supposed to take that experience and live my life through it. So I started living in awareness and recognizing and acknowledging this ego self, this part of me, having conversations with it. I would actually thank it and say, "Oh my God, you know, this does not feel good. Not only does it not feel good, it's not who I really am. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to move over here to my higher self, and I'm going to get fed over here, and this is all going to move away. This feeling, this emotion, these triggers, this baggage is going to go away." And it did, every time. So the more that I did that, the more that I kept moving over here and getting more grounded spiritually, getting more authentic with myself, the more I grew. I wasn't reaching. I didn't have to go reach. It was just happening. So I did this. This went on and on for years. And then one day I realized that there was something missing between this relationship I was having. And it occurred to me that in my coaching practice with my clients, I would encourage them to give a name to their fear, to their emotional pain bodies, their triggers, and have a relationship with them so that they could dissipate them and let them go. And I thought, well, why don't you name? Give her a name. So I didn't know why, but I named her Eunice. So I've been, talking with Eunice for years now. So years go by, and Eunice has been with me in a whole different way than she was ever with me before. In fact, the more I acknowledged her and immediately realized that when these emotional things came up that were an illusion, I could move over here. And the more I moved over here, the more I put myself in a state of manifesting. The more I was attracted to the laws of attraction, and they were working through me. In fact, it's how you came along. It's how I attracted my husband of 3 weeks, and you. But you put those wheels in motion, you center that, and you just take off. Things change, everything changes. So I'm going on this road, and then about 10 years, and things are shifting and changing for me. I'm in different types of relationships, different events in my life that I realize are different because I'm doing it different and engaging different. And then my mom gets diagnosed with cancer. And it's brutal. I mean, having this relationship changed everything for me. The whole experience of her end-of-life experience was different because of this change. But my mom, she's amazing. She's with me all the time, and she helps me in my work. But when her last 5 days, she was in hospice, and every day, several times a day, she said, Debbie, you got to go do something with this hospice. You got to do something in this hospice thing. I just feel it. I know it. And I'm like, well, Mom, I'm a labor and delivery nurse. Look, I bring people in. And she said, you'll know what it is. You'll know what it is. I said, I can hardly get my head around your hospice. She goes, you will. She passed over, and the next day she showed me 3 signs, literally 3 signs within 3.5 hours that were hospice all the way. I said, okay, I get it, but I'm not going to reach for it. I'm not going to chase it. That would have been ego-driven. So I waited, and I was going to let it unfold, and it unfolded exactly as it was to unfold. And so now I use this gift from 11 years ago that happened to me, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with it. I'm midwifing people to the other side. Because of that experience, I can say, this is where you're going. Even if we don't have a faith, we want to believe that it's something better, right? And even when we do have faith, I have found with my families, even when we do have faith, we lose it. In that moment, we doubt. Ego comes in, and we allow it to stay, and we doubt where we're going. What is home? We talk about going back home. We doubt that. But I'm able to educate through my experience that happened to me through my son. My son brought me into his near-death experience. Wow, how does that happen? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. But what matters is that we have a new trilogy. The mind, the ego, the mind, it's within us. Then there's this physical, me here on earth, the spiritual being in this physical body expressing, I am God, expressing myself as Deb Mechley here on earth. And then I've got my higher self that is part of me too that I'm moving to. It's all one. It's not different. And if you form a relationship with this piece that you have given it power to be out here as a separate entity, and it is not. You have the power. Empower yourself through all the decisions that you're going to make in your life. Change the way it looks. You change the way you feel. Every thought will move you toward your higher self. If you thank this in gratitude and graciousness, and move over here. From me to you. Dear human, you've got it all wrong. You didn't come here to master unconditional love. That is where you came from and where you will return. You came here to learn personal love, universal love, messy love, sweaty love, crazy love. You even came here to learn broken love, whole love, infused with divinity. Lived through the grace and the stumbling, demonstrated through the beauty of messing up often. You didn't come here to be perfect. You already are. You came here to be gorgeously human, flawed and fabulous, and then to rise again into remembering your soul self. Whenever in doubt, and you will be in doubt, go toward the soul. Create your world in a more joyful way, effortlessly. Go with the soul. Dance with the soul, evolve with your soul. Your soul doesn't judge you, it's perfect just as you are. It doesn't care what choice you make. Every choice you make, whether you like the outcome or not, or whether you are happy with the feeling that comes along with it, you still have no choice but to evolve. Our soul brought us here, carries this vessel, this body, which is a lot of work at times. Imagine when you dream some of those incredible dreams you have. I believe that's the soul dancing and replenishing itself, regenerating itself, so it can come back into this human body and do this thing that we're doing here, this human experience over and over again. The soul does not judge. It came here to evolve through you. And if you think about that, the opportunity that you have, this incredible, beautiful soul, is within you, depending on you to evolve it through this human experience. So we can come back and do it again and again and again, or, I'm going to a different planet next time. I'm not doing it here again, but that's okay. So evolve your soul through this amazing human experience. You get to create it. Will you choose fear? Or will you choose love? Go with the soul.